Welcome to this, our final exploration of maps, mystery, and some super mundane physics, and perhaps above all, our own experience. And I'm feeling kind of feisty today. I just want to give a caution of warning that if anything comes out a little strongly stated or feistier than usual, just take it all with a grain of salt. But one thing I do kind of feel feisty about is this idea that mystery and a realm of unknowing is in danger, that it's fragile, and that if we know too much or science says something too much, that this deeper mystery of existence and being is somehow under threat. Yeah, I think that's nonsense. And I also can relate to why it can really feel under threat. Just even from my own experience, like I know the age that I was at when I just loved reading. I remember reading this one book, like Hyperspace, and I don't even remember what it was about, but I remember that I was going through this phase. I think I was in sixth grade. Yeah, sixth grade. And, I even have journal entries about like, the teachers are just droning on, and I don't want to, I'm not looking forward to the day anymore. And so I was like coming up with all these ways, like, I'm going to wake up and journal. I don't know, I was kind of a funny kid. Like I was going to make my own adventure, and reading that, you just kind of are beginning to feel like hemmed in by expectations and routines and what you're supposed to do and who you are in this kind of surface way that our world conditions us to be like, to see ourselves as, by and large. And then there was this book, Hyperspace. And again, I don't remember, but it was something about like many, many dimensions and the nature of reality. And, I could just feel myself coming alive again as I read those pages. So there was something there, not to extrapolate my sixth grade experience to all of Tarnation, but there was a lot of messages coming at me, and the way science is taught in school was one of them. I love how Thomas S. Kuhn says, there are few disciplines taught as dogmatically as science other than theology. It's interesting. And so there was all these kind of messages coming at me, making me feel, not very connected to myself, to a deeper, fuller richness of what is not known beyond our conventional little boxes that we tend to like to put ourselves in. And then there was hyperspace. There was quantum weirdness. I even love the story of, like we are stardust. That the atoms in our body, the heavier atoms, the heavier elements, were built in supernova explosions. And it gives us this, well, for some of us, it gives us this connection to a more expansive, kind of awesome in the old sense that it's awesome way that we might relate to ourselves and the world. But what's kind of interesting about those stories like Hyperspace or quantum mechanics and its various interpretations, or even that we are stardust, is that none of that is necessarily immediate in our experience. I mean, as a story, as something that then opens us up to another experience, more options. Our maps, as we say, can give us another lens of a map. But just the dynamics of it is just a little interesting, right? Like, this story from the authority of science, and we live in an age where many of us are influenced by what physics says is so. That we kind of need that. We're relying on that in some way to have permission to feel mystery, to open more to our experience and its richness as it is. Or even to get some glimpses of some other kinds of experiences, perhaps through spiritual practice. And then, kind of reach over and grab onto physics and say, this justifies my experience. What if whatever it is that we know, and we know now a tremendous amount, what if whatever we know, whatever we could know, can never threaten, can never touch the utter fullness of the mystery that we're being, and that it involves these aspects of our experience that can never be just conceptually pinpointed. It's a cliche, but the experience of the color pink, for example, and any understanding of the color pink, and any understanding that we might eventually have of how certain phenomena can then give rise to an experience of the color pink. There's still the experience of the color pink. The immediacy of that. And the inexplicable, this is why sometimes I call it, the magic of it. Not that there's so much that we can say about it and around it, but still the mystery's untouched. And if we're kind of wanting to approach, say, a meditation practice, and in this context, like a body-centered meditation practice with that sense, it's like the Tao that cannot be named, the terrain that our maps can approach, but we're always going to experience it through a map. The map is even part of the terrain. It's not separate. Like the map is part of this terrain. And that the Tao, whatever it is giving rise to this map that corresponds in some ways and that we use. And so it's like maybe instead of these dances around mystery and permission and authority that in my feisty zone here, I feel like they can easily take us away from the immediacy of our experience and a real inside out sense of, I got maps. I have choices about how I wield my maps, what maps I want to use. And maps, there's not just understanding, but general perception and even specific perception. All of our experience can be a map. And that we can own that more from the inside out, with that sense of, the mystery is ours to be. And that we get to use whatever we find helpful. And I have found some super mundane physics. I mean, when I say mundane, like really like action, reaction, locality, initial conditions, which maybe we'll get into next time, but like things that are not just, quantum, even quantum gravity or whatever it might be, but like if we take physics to really be a honing of what can we learn from experience, and experience gets translated in that honing into experiment, and then experiment then allows us to hone in on some things that are so consistent we can't find an exception to them, that we can even make models of them and equations of them and come to some general principles like these three that come from the teachings of physicist and Tai Chi master Wancho Park: the mutual flow, free flow, and whole flow qualities. Then those are just some in a way, potentially simple keys to the map that so far experience has not found a counterexample to. And if we so choose, we can use those as these kind of pointers that just point very generally to like there's more here in the immediacy of your experience, in the immediacy of your physical bodily experience. There's actually more to be experienced here. There's more of this contactful mutual flow. There's a practically infinite finer flow. There's the wholeness of all of this unfolding all together. And so yeah, I find that helpful. And it's also I think really important that it's not meant to be taken in the way that sometimes we use, oh, as physics says this is so, and that's it. And especially since it's mundane physics, super well-established physics, that's kind of like, this is why I sometimes think Master Park's second book is one of the most misunderstood books because it's so simple, but the underlying feel that both of us have is this is just a simple way to approach what is always far richer in our experience. And in this kind of language, like it's not touching the mystery, that we actually have more of the humble approach that whatever we say, whatever we know, it doesn't touch the mystery and doesn't supplant the immediacy of your own experience. It's just a way to, if it's useful for you, more open into the immediacy of your own experience without some of the layers of those maps that we can sometimes use in a limiting way. And we'll go into, I'll get off my soapbox. Good gracious. I'll get off my soapbox and we'll go into the practice. And yeah, though I've spewed a lot of opinions at you, the invitation for exploration is how, if we, at the kind of completion for now of this exploration of maps and mystery and mundane physics, what it might be like to, in your own way, on your own terms, really give yourself permission to drop through any map that you feel is limiting to the immediacy of your experience, and open more to the fullness of it as you experience it. That we don't need a spiritual teacher to say it's a certain way, or science to say it's a certain way, to begin to identify our limiting maps and fall through them. Though certainly we can find certain aspects helpful to find and approach these other layers of experience. That possibility is ours, is ours to claim. And that may enable us to, well, just to see in your own experience if, in addition to some of the kind of awe of feeling more mystery, having a story of more mystery as we, just feel our body, that there can be an openness and an energy and like it's cool, but there's also like just a real knowing of a kind of, I'm gonna run short of words, but I'm pointing towards the possibility that existence, being, being a body that's not just a body, that it has a kind of substantialness in its very subtlety. Not just substantial, like, oh, I know I'm here because I can, pat my arm, but like there's an immediacy of a substantial existence, knowing that can let the kind of the feeling of mystery and coolness also be just imbued with a respect, like a respect for being, respect that's in the very, well, I barely know what I'm talking about, so let's just practice. I'm exploring this, as I often say, right along with you. If you'd like, you're welcome to close your eyes. Welcome to take a few minutes here to complete any inner dialogue you're having with me about what you disagreed with, what you agreed with. And just beginning to notice what is here in the physical sense of your body. We go about our day, the kind of relationship with our body for the most part. And then we sit down, lie down, or whatever position you might be in, and we meditate. Maybe just even noticing you can feel into what is the kind of lingering, conventional, habitual way of relating to your body. Might be lingering on here as we transition into meditation. Overall, mine is kind of like a hey, you, get my to do list done for me. Go here, go there. The object of my intention and commands can bring me what I want, even if it's a cup of water to my lips. And beginning to take a few deep, full breaths. Feeling that shift of whatever it is you shift to meditate. And gently in the background, being curious about how you tend to relate to your body in meditation. It's probably not uncommon for the body to be more like the object of meditation, breathing, body scans, and a kind of sense like the good stuff, the real deep stuff. The real meditation is mind. Body's kind of like a useful tool. Stuff that in a more subtle way we find useful. Possibly, maybe not. I think if this series has really offered anything, it might be that an experience of body is an experience of mind. That whatever our categories at the level of experience, we can't actually separate, okay, that's body and this is mind. And that there could very well be a seamlessness where the unfolding all together, the flow of nature, the Tao, includes these patterns of mind and body. And they're all together and all practically infinite in their fineness. And all in a way cozy in their effects. Nothing alone, nothing one-sided. There's the mystery of the flow of nature that somehow includes our experience. And we get to drop through our preconceptions into the immediacy of that. And I practice that dropping in by doing, you guys would know the really simple feeling of mutual flow of my feet in the ground. Actually touching in on that immediacy. And then expanding it to anywhere in my body. Nothing alone. Nothing one-sided. And there's actually so many pockets of my body and so pockets of my mind that are currently feeling covered over. There's a covering over of that immediacy. And gently just see what could help me drop through that covering over and drop into more of the richness, all that flow together. And this can seem pretty clunky, pretty stuff. One thing touching another thing, stuff like. So if it's helpful, and even feel that sense of the more subtle processes, electrical pulses, coursing through your body, also mutual flow. Chemical reactions in the cells, also mutual flow. The quantum fields giving rise to those atoms interacting, also mutual flow. And just see if those stories of the layers of foundations of physics help to uncover some of the ways we may have been limiting our experience before. What if instead of the body, I said the field? And there'd be a a further allowing from just the fact that words have their limits, our understanding is limited, and there's something here immediate and indescribable and inexplicable that somehow lets us know we have this thing called a body. And what's the experience of that? And typically, I don't weave a story from science. Instead, we just give ourselves a chance to fall more into the fineness of experience by feeling where it might be a little more evident, which is just the flow at our nose, air coming in and out. And that open inquiry of what's the finest flow I can feel. And maybe see for you what is the phrasing. Your finest flow doesn't evoke much for you, open much for you. What would help you wield your maps in a way that instead of a kind of a vague covering over, there could be more of an immediacy of subtlety and refined, direct, touching in. Beyond any particular label. Just feel sensations in around the nose as we breathe. Not to totally derail what you're coming up with, but I I wrote this science paper in a special project in 8th grade, and I was falling into a cup of salt dissolving in water and kind of experiencing it from the molecular level. Tremendous amount happening going on in that cup of water. I got a B on that paper and was still mad about that. I really enjoyed writing that from the inside out. So yeah, I mean, it's just an example of you get to know you. You get to come to know your maps. And if you feel a kind of covering over of the directness of experience, you get to find what helps you kind of peek through it, or more sustained open to what lies beneath. It gets to come from you. Sometimes we talk about free falling into the fractal-like, ever finer flows within flows. These are all just stories that might help us to recover more of the richness of our own maps that are already going on perceptually. Perhaps noticing that it's less like breath is this object of meditation for our mind, and more this fascinating, direct experience in itself. That hones our wielding of our maps so that they're maybe a little less clunky as we then more return to the body. And a lot of times we breathe in and feel the breath coming down and inside of us on the in-breath. And then on the out-breath, it's like this chance to feel, the body itself is not so different from that flow of air. It's also finally free. Breath as a flow of nature, body as a flow of nature. all this flow together. Nothing separate. Maybe again, just notice if my language is falling short for you, as my language always will. All these flows together. What is that? Just a bunch of billiard balls bopping around. And again, the invitation is that we get to become more unshakable in the stance of mystery, the stance of what Master Park calls opening to the unknown. How could a sense of all this as flow together not just be another limiting map, but maybe a pointer that helps us open to the unknown, beyond any limit we've come up against before. We just find this simple way to fall through it. Nothing elaborate, nothing complex. Simple and unfathomable opening. The unknown of our own body. And as we breathe in, and as we breathe out, just checking in. What's the map for relating to your body in this moment? I speak of dropping through maps and this kind of thing. And no analogy is perfect. But just like we can lay down the burden of our weight to the support of the earth, as we drop through limiting maps, we're met by a fuller feeling. What is it that even gives you your experience of body? Not to be answered, but to be felt. Existence. How do you know you exist? What's the experience of existence itself? How could anyone else ever tell you what that is? And beginning to now feel into our hands, the sensations that let us know our hands are there, where each of our fingertips end in space. And if you'd like, can use the sense of a feeling that fills the volume all the way to all those fingertips. That lets you know you have hands and where they are, the space they take up. And yeah, sometimes we do some techniques to feel more into the subtlety of our hands, drop through the maps of our hands, like feeling the breath coming in and out of our fingertips as though that's happening. Feeling the spaces between all the fingers so that the edges of the fingers themselves kind of pop with their presence amongst all that space in between. We could use anything that we've used here. There are all these fine, free flows, practically infinite, filling the 3D volume. that there are fingers and they're in our mind, in our maps, both equivalent. That there's no separation between observer and observed. It's all interaction, mutual effects. That, that stuff making up our fingers is, what is it? Is it a particle or is it a wave? It's neither. It's beyond our conventional categories. Even that stuff making up our fingers, it's 99.9999999 whatever percent space. You feel a sense of the space around our fingers flowing through all that empty space. One space. Perhaps one of my personal favorites for the fingers is what we started with, as being beamed into this human form, having never experienced it before. This Richard Feynman's thought experiment, which is the embodied experiment. You know nothing. You've never experienced being a human before. You've never seen a human before. And from the inside out, you're discovering, there seems to be some longer upper appendages. And then they end with something where, if you want to tell your E.T. the alien friends back home what it was like, what could you discover from the inside out? What would be the inner feeling, not from memory, but from direct experience? And all of these are, just examples that now you have this sense of how some maps can be more opaque and cover what is underneath. Some can help us more to open, find a subtler, fuller, richer map of experience beneath. What would allow you to open more to the unknown? As you feel into that possibility, what rises in your experience? what becomes just immediate and known and felt as you more drop into it. Sometimes I get questions from students in Tai Chi and Qigong where it's like, my hands feel so tingly. Is that normal? It's remarkable how different hands can feel. And it's natural that we seek reassurance around that kind of an experience just around our hands. And I think one of the possibilities is that when we come to see how limiting our maps can tend to be, even as relates to our own body, that we have a very basic explanation for how our experience can feel different than when I was typing at the computer 2 hours ago. I don't necessarily need a spiritual tradition to say, that's chi flow. Don't necessarily need to have a story of what I'm experiencing at quantum level. Not that those can't be there, but like, how do you know? What is your experience inside out? And gently spread the hands. Just open the heart of the hands, the center of the hands, the fingers, each going in their own direction. And then if you would like, can take your hands. Oh, might not quite do justice. Just call them hands anymore. And bring them one over the other onto your body center, a little below your belly button. And this can be a way to keep dropping into the experience itself of the body. The whole body. And what is existence? What is being? What's the knowing I exist? Actually, that might be a totally different map. uh, just an opening to immediacy of whatever this is. Without ever landing upon a final that. And how do you feel towards that? Perhaps more clearly, just what sense of being in relationship does this evoke for you? All together. If you'd like, can lie down a minute. I didn't do this earlier. It's part of my own practice that after meditation, I just, during or after, just lie down and neither practice nor not practice. Maybe a rare chance to not gear my experience towards anything or nothing at all. And stay, or it can go. Oh, and reflect on anything of your experience from today or from this 6-part series, 6 episodes, I guess, episodes of exploration. Despite my opinions, I hope that one of the fuller messages of these explorations can be not what we need to think, but how we can navigate things like spirituality and science, and perhaps above all, how we can learn to recognize the help that can come from the outside, that is real and that is needed and that is deeply cherished and called for on any kind of inner journey path. And also really own from the inside out that way that it is our experience. And it doesn't need a stamp of approval from anybody or anything else. And we drop in and know it. So let's dive into any discussion that we have here. Because none of this will come up again. This 6 series like this is the 6 sessions like that. That's going to complete all that we've got to say about any of this. Good to see many of you. Jane, hello, welcome. I think you're new here. Vervain, a good evening to you. Great to see you back. Saying hi to each other. Champa, hello, welcome. Many new people here. Champa, welcome. Ella, welcome. Ella, you said, what is the other flow? Free mutual is whole. Free, mutual, and whole flow. So free is that, super mundane. We've never had any, even with quantum entanglement, as cool as that is, there's no claim that anything has gone faster than the speed of light. There's no demonstration of interaction that's non-local. And so what that enables is that sense of there's no practical limit to how fine, how free our parts are in the parts whole picture, the parts whole cascade. And then mutual is that, not come across any exception to good old Newton's for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, which you don't be quoted much in. The spirituality of action reaction. No, we do not see that very often. And then the whole, that's more, evoked often in that sense of everything is now. Right? Everything is now. And Master Park is also a physicist and has written a book, Essential Reality and Time, more on the whole flow quality. I think we might do something like that next, so we'll stay tuned. So yes, the third one is whole, Champa. There's also the quantum. It's kind of funny, for the second book of the that really goes into the free mutual whole qualities. It's called Now Flow Breath Movement Mind. And some AI generator, and this was a while ago, so they probably have gotten better now, but it was like, 3, flows of nature from 3 three now flow qualities from 3 physics flow natures is the subtitle. And it came up with, there's cosmic flow, and there's quantum flow, and there was something else, I forget. But there's this it was kind of funny to see how they made it more like what you would expect, right? Esther, my connection seems to be off and on. Oh, sorry. Let me know if there's if other people are experiencing that. I can always double check my tech. Marta, it is good to see you. Good to see you back. Champa, do you have recordings? Loved this session so much. Thank you. I do record this in high quality as I ramble on. And someone else mentioned that they wanted to have a course on this, and I was like, oh, a course. And we had like a conversation and via chat, and then only afterwards I realized, oh, it's an insight timer course. So yeah, you all can let me know. I make these freely available, but I can I can put this up on as a course on Insight Timer. It seems like this one was it landed for several of you, so I'm always interested in your feedback. Vervain, thank you very much for the series. The practices have been great, and it's been enjoyably thought-provoking. Great. Yeah. Interesting. When I first had the idea for this series, I was like, really? You're gonna do that? Yeah, so don't know. Yeah. You guys continue to encourage me to step beyond what I expect others might be interested in. Emily, paraphrasing an old saying, once I thought I knew a little something, but the more I live, the more I learn how little I know yet. However, I have lots of markers and pointers on my map, and I will continue to revise as needed. I think that sums up so much. I mean, in a way, it could have just said that, wouldn't have needed to have all these, 6 episodes, a course, hours and hours of your time. And that's some of what, that lands for me because I feel like we go on these explorations and we kind of muck around in this whole realm. And then we actually can come out with something that's just really simple and practical and livable. So if you choose to repeat this series as it gets posted, I think that keeping that in mind, that it's not exploration for just, it's fun to explore, and I hope we do it lightheartedly enough, but that it's really that opportunity to crystallize something that, if I just said that, what Emily had just, so concisely given at the beginning, like it might not have meant very much to someone who's just coming to it. But then once you explore it and come to know it for yourself, then those words have a lot of meaning and practical inner experience with that. And then you can drop all the other stuff. You just don't have to carry so much around with you. So thank you, Emily, for sharing that. Champa, this was my first. Welcome. Champa says, what about thoughts? Yeah, what about those thoughts? So I have to kind of scroll back up because the thread is long enough. So I need to look at. Yeah. Well, one of the ways now that we have this sense of maps and kind of wielding our maps, and our experience is always a map, even our most direct perception is a map. Oh, Champa, you said thoughts faster than light. Well, I'll continue this thread so that I can finish this because I think that it might be, relevant. Actually, I've forgotten what I was going to say now. Now I'm thinking about your thoughts faster than light. So let me go to that. Yeah, I mean, thoughts faster than light. Maps faster than light. That kind of gets into some of the realm of, consciousness, and definitely some people even have experiences or feel there can be kind of maybe thought-based communication between two people. I think there was an astronaut, actually, one of the Apollo astronauts who far, far away from Earth tried to check out some of that speed of even thoughts between two people, influences like that. And this is where I would just say, like, that has not been experimentally proven. So in terms of experience as science, and this is where I think science can turn into a killjoy, right? What is it? Oh, telepathy, right? Like, what are you saying? Is there no telepathy? Or, are you really saying that, like, this mystery of consciousness and all of this is just, electrical signals in our brain bumping up against each other? And, I don't have answers to all of that. What I do find helpful is that I can fall through my maps, my clunky maps, easier if I feel like it makes rational good sense that there's no grain size. And so that's kind of the extent to that I use it. And then you actually get to see in the speed of light, there's that sense of like an unfolding, right? So taking just really blanket, we have not observed a contradiction to that, and then using it as a way to feel into the subtlety of experience. So if any of you have, beliefs that things happen non-locally, that's again part of how you get to navigate what works for you. And I only offer the mundane physics to have that possibility for some of us of, like feeling our fingers explode with a level of subtle existence, substantial, subtle. No more words I can put to it. And that's where it comes from, and that's where it goes for me. And take it or leave it, and put anything you want in between as well too. I wonder what I was gonna say. I forget, but it's all. Oh, I think I was gonna say about thoughts. Once we have that sense about maps, like one of the most typical early experiences as a meditator is you sit down, you close your eyes, and boom, you're encountered with a monkey mind that you didn't even know you had. And so why is there even such a tendency, I would say, to work with thoughts, or even have this conception of meditation as about not having thoughts, is that when we're just chattering around in our kind of monkey mind, that puts a pretty clunky filter on our maps, right, on our sense. It's like, he said, she said, this, that, I'm going to do that later. It's very embedded in kind of our familiar conceptual landscape of our lives. And so we don't, here in this practice and in a body-centered practice that we tend to do, we don't really work with thoughts like, oh, we need to not have thoughts. But the invitation is more to feel into your body. And that's what drops you through some of the layers of conceptual maps that can limit our fuller experience. And that tends to work better for me, just coming from my own experience, because then I don't get into wrestling with thoughts. I more am just inviting myself to feel something, and then I actually feel it. I'm not just letting go, but I'm feeling something coming up to support me, support my experience. Vervain, stupid question. I love stupid questions. From a physics ignorant visa V's essential reality and time. If any given moment contains the initial conditions sufficient for everything else, where does entropy fit in? Is it underflow? Oh, Vervain, that is not a stupid question. That is actually a really knowledgeable and wonderful question. And so, where does entropy fit in? So part of the context, right, that kind of a question comes from is that the models of, say, Newtonian mechanics are reversible. In principle, you could run them backwards. So then, but we don't. We don't, we have this experience that time, and I think this will be our next series, something about time, that time flows forward. So then what gives that forward direction? And then that's, the answer is usually, entropy, thermodynamics. Things get messier. The ice melts, it doesn't reassemble into an ice cube. The egg breaks, it doesn't just spontaneously reassemble into an egg. And so that kind of gives the thermodynamic direction of time. And basically, in a nutshell, Dr. Park says there is no fundamental time, that the change that is inherent in a moment is sufficient, necessary, and sufficient for all effects. And so that would include, as you go in the more change direction, that would include whatever would become more probable from like a statistical mechanics point of view. That is where the entropy comes from. So yes, it's underflow, right? So you ask, is it underflow? It's underflow. It's under this change that can be fully at a moment. And that gives, what is the more probable, more change. The more change is going to be what is more probable. And it just so happens that it's not impossible, but it's so statistically unlikely for it to go in the other direction in its initial conditions, that gives the kind of sense that we have of the flow of more change, which we usually call the flow of time, having this direction of entropy. Vervain, that may have been more than you bargained for, but this is this is very much part of what I'm even working on myself in some philosophy. So let me know if that answers. Okay, thank you. I was thinking about the apparent unidirectionality of time that physics reportedly struggles to explain without entropy. Exactly. Right. Yeah. So you kind of presuppose that there's a fundamental background time, and then it's like, well, why does it have this direction? It has this direction because of entropy. and another alternative. Both are empirically equivalent, both are correct, but another alternative is actually we don't need background fundamental time. We just need change, and that changing can be inherent in a moment. And then everything else is sufficient for all the effects that we usually attribute to, say, so-called time, including the arrow of time, the entropy gradients, and all that good stuff. So David, I'm far more aware of my fingertips than I've ever been. And how are those toes? We had a whole episode about toes before. And I'm not really certain that they are even mine or have ever existed at all. But how much of me is what I've always thought of as me? That's a question, but how much of me is what I've always thought of as me? I'll stick with just the fingertips for now. At least I've found where they are after 63 years. Yeah, I see some hearts coming up from the comments. That's How much of me is what I've always thought of as me? That's another line that could have just summarized what what this whole map talk is about. Yeah. How much of me is what I've always thought of as me? And even our fingertips, how much of our fingertips is what we've just thought of as our fingertips instead of that, opening to the unknown, even at our fingertips, so that you get to say, I'm more aware of my fingertips than I've ever been. I'm not really even certain that they are even mine. Ella, it was funny because I looked it up and the AI called it the other fluff. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Funny. Emily, Insight Timer course would be great. This series has a lot of depth. Awesome. David, I'd love this as a course, please. All right. So we'll get to work on that. Emily says, well said, thank you. 14 minutes ago. Have I really been talking 14 minutes? I bet I have. Firefly, I wasn't able to join today's session, but echo David's suggestion that this topic would make a fantastic course to revisit it on Insight Timer. I hope you'll consider making one. All right. It looks like I will be publishing this first course on Insight Timer, and once it's up, I'll let you know. It will probably take me a month to get it together, given some of the other things I've got going on. But it'll be my first course on Insight Timer, and you all can give me feedback about how it's going for you. And since this is looking like this will be posted as well, I'll say hi to those who in future time are coming to the end of this to be made Insight Timer course, and just a real invitation to even if it's asynchronous, and this goes for all of you, to message me and let me know what your experience is and what connects for you, because that's how I've gotten sucked into all of this. And really is a matter of responding to you, as well as daring to show my inner quirkiness of what I think is really interesting, and the delight of connecting with others that also Champa, I hear Insight Timer is going to start offering videos now. Yes. I think this could even be a video course, so we can. You let me know. Vervain, be careful, David. Don't get sucked into the black hole. You guys are looking out for each other. David says, I could listen to this on repeat endlessly as long as time continues to flow. and I avoid the black hole. All right, so we have those caveats. David, please avoid black holes. Time, please continue to flow. Emily says, David, my fingers and toes are already disappearing from the photograph. The future. Such fun. That's fun. Thank you all. And I'll see you on the course and see you for our next series, which looks like it will be on time or the lack thereof. All right. Take care.